that came, stay in touch with them. Maybe there's a time to, if possible, to bring them back, because theirs was by time schedules anyway. So it's like one person in, one person out in a scheduled time. So maybe it's a possibility. We just, like I said, we don't know. So
have they had any communication with you, the band?
not other than we received emails from them saying right now everything has just been suspended at this time and we'll stay in touch. So that's kind of where we're at with them.
Does anybody else have any questions about this? Input? So we'll move on to Western University.
We had 3 students this year that we're supposed to be working with, and I have yet to meet them. Needless to say, about the second week in February, they all headed home.
Yeah.
And so I've been in contact. I've had 2 phone messages or 2 phone conferences with them. They apparently put together the beginnings of a resource pamphlet and passed it on to Dick, and they felt like that was one project they at least had worked on. I don't know how good it was. I haven't seen it. At any rate, they tried to gather resources throughout the community and put them all in a pamphlet type thing. The high school had started to work with mentoring, and unfortunately now that's pretty much done. Hard to mentor when you can't be with your mentors. And the other project is that they were hoping to start working with the band that was coming up, and that they were going to see, they apparently have another doctor that they are working with, and they were hoping that that doctor would take on some, possibly even add a day of time on the band up here in Sweet Home. And so they were trying to work with that doctor, and I don't even have the name of the doctor. I guess what I would say is we haven't accomplished a whole lot this year.
Well, if they want to do any kind of outreach and they would like to help us with the Facebook, or letting some of the other community members that have ongoing Facebook presence so that we can get information out, that would, it'd be more than welcome.
Okay.
Anything because of the what's going on and the communications I have with people that you are still working, still doing what they need to be doing. They're talking about just bursting out in tears for no reason, and they don't get it. Well, there's stressors, there's economic, there's community, there's lack of family connection, worrying about the kids. And so they have problems, and we need to make sure that they have as much connection as possible. And so some of the recommendations that I've heard is that rather than just doing phone calls, if people could be encouraged to doing Zooms so they can see the faces of the people they care about and work with, that's very healthy. And so, thank you.
Well, these 3 are done. I mean, they're with their year, they're basically finished.
Yeah.
She did say that they were hoping to start another group. It's not a dead in the water program, but right now it's kind of dead in the water for obvious reasons.
Any other questions, anybody?
It's not on the same project, but with the same idea of gathering together community resources. One of the things I've noticed is there's no Facebook presence where anybody in the community that has jobs can post those, so people can just look and say, oh, there's a job coming open here, a job coming open there in the community, and that, you know, I should go look. So I don't know where that should even be plugged in at, but it was just something we were talking about. So.
Sweet Home Employment Office.
Well, it is, but you know, there's the deal out here is we're, you know, 30 minutes away from Albany, and a lot of the kids or the, you know, people without as much transportation want to stay pretty much local for at least for a while.
Maybe that's something that could be put on Jan's radar. So, because they're always chatting and there's people plugged in, I think, to her days to see how many people are doing that, but
I don't know.
they're running every day and she might be able to, if at least that's on their radar. It might need to be kicked up every now and then to be put back there. Something we don't have. So,
Good idea.
any other ideas, anybody? Okay, we'll move on. Mr. Corley, do you have a,
Well, right now, the banner hanging deals are being used for the graduating seniors. And they wanted to do them over Memorial Day. And I said, well, the only problem is that we promised that they'd be up Memorial Day and then come down here. So I talked to her and I said, if you call every one of the people and they say that they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. But I don't have the time to call 80 people and have that chat. So if you want to do it, that's okay, but you got to call everybody and make sure it's all right. And so evidently that happened because the banners are still up.
Well, they'll be up through the holiday weekend,
Yeah,
then they'll come
Yeah.
down.
they were, that's normally when ours go up before then, before the holiday weekend, usually.
that week?
But they've made arrangements to do it.
Oh,
I think they were asking to put it up till graduation.
yeah, they want to come up after the holiday weekend.
Yeah,
That's what they were asking.
yeah. But, so that's where we're at on that. And it wasn't a matter of trying to choose one over the other, but when you make a promise, when you do the program to begin with, you got to stick with that. So that's what we were at on that.
Any more questions?
I would just comment that both groups are very deserving, and I think it's nice to drive through town and see seniors' pictures of, I mean, they're missing out on a lot already.
They are.
And
And that's
so
why.
at least it's some kind of recognition for the kids that,
And I-
we as a community know you're.
I thought of being able to use both top and bottom bars to put them on, so that's what they did.
Yeah.
They put them on the top and the bottom. They're only, they're temporary. They're not like the other ones that stay up during the bad weather and everything. So they were only up a month.
So are they gonna give them out at graduation or?
Yes. Mhm.
I saw they're doing little placards in the yard and stuff for some of them. So you mentioned earlier, and I'm gonna switch just a little bit to that graduation subject. You said they're doing drive-up graduation. Are they
No,
doing a parade?
they're not doing a drive-up graduation.
I don't know about here, I've just seen it on TV that they're
They've been doing
doing
that,
it all over the country and people are getting all upset about it.
Okay,
but we're trying to do it in an area where we can get everybody out and then the family can come in, they can walk up, get their diploma, and we'll film this all beforehand. And then it'll be compilated together and then shown on graduation day. So that's the plan.
okay. That's good to know. Any questions, anybody?
They did submit a special event permit for a parade as well.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna do
I think that
it.
would be fun.
Yeah.
Especially if we sit in their cars and watch them participate. I was up at Lake Oswego and they had staff from the school decorate their cars. And then they drove to each student's house honking and waving, and they knew the route that they were gonna do. And they had little Vespas with balloons on them, and I mean, it was very
Well,
fun.
when we were young, that was the normal Friday night activity.
I'm sorry, you can't remember when you were young. Don't even go there. I hope that's on.
So that's all the old business we have,
Dick, I
old
think
business.
I've got Dick on my phone because are you there?
I am there,
Can you hear?
and I can hear you, and I can hear them intermittently, and I can see everyone.
Okay,
Nice.
Can you hear me?
we can. I got you on my speakerphone, so technology is working its magic.
Different ways.
Okay.
Did Dick have anything about mental health?
Did you have anything that you wanted to add that you may have not heard from this group?
Well, it was so scratchy that I wasn't quite sure how far you got.
We're almost done. No. But this is an opportunity for you to, if you've got thoughts.
I'm not sure what you were talking about. One of the things I was going to add was I've been to a couple of meetings where Samaritan has been part of the group. Actually, it's subcommittees of Samaritan, and this kind of shutdown has encouraged them to use telehealth much more than they ever did before. And they're thinking that they might actually try to improve on that as a way to provide, healthcare kind of options to folks. I'm thinking what they're thinking about is the med bus and health, the mental health bus that came into town. It's just a thought at this point, but it seems to be working.
And that was one of the questions that Lisa had there, Dick, was, since the health fair is really in a holding pattern, and I kind of briefly went through those items that you and I had talked about, and her question was, is it possible to use the technologies like Zoom or maybe even what you're talking about to provide some sort of services out there to the community?
Yeah, they're working on it. This has kind of driven them to do something that they had not planned on.
Okay.
Short of going through the whole thing, I'll watch the whole thing again. I don't actually have much more.
Okay, thank you, Dick.
That brings us to new business.
We tried.
So I am gonna have to go on another call for the school board.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Tommy Mall. I am the Emergency Management Coordinator for the city. Some of you probably already have seen me in another role as Code Enforcement Officer. It's typically what I have been doing up until about 2 months ago, the incident happened. A little bit, it's still going on today. But I'm going to talk to you, Ray asked me to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing in the city and why things look different in certain places and how we got to those places. You're going to hear words like unprecedented. I'm sure you've heard that. Never seen this before, not in our lifetime. So I'll talk a little bit about how we got to where we were, but I want to tell you a little bit about what my job is. So during this pandemic, my role as Emergency Management Coordinator is, once we stood up the EOC, the state, our national, state, and the county set up their EOCs, we decided to set up EOC where I would set up in one of the conference rooms back there, and I would just keep getting information, info. So I'm the city EOC manager. So basically what that is I get everybody together. I herd all the cats. We get on our teams and we talk about different things that go on. That's one of them. I maintain daily contact with Linn County EOC. That's Joe Larson, Lieutenant Joe Larson. He gives me info on what's going on with public health, what may be coming down with the governor, and sometimes some national stuff, but most of the national stuff you can see on the television. And I'm sure you've seen when President Trump was doing this thing every day. So that's where the unprecedented and never seen this before stuff kind of came from. Maintain activity logs, supplies. In the early beginning, because we've never done anything like this, supplies were a little bit crazy. I mean, we had enough here. We had enough for everybody in this, all the employees in the city. But trying to get more was what the challenge was. So once FEMA started getting involved, we started to see supplies, and I think within a week or two, we had our supply list, and the cops got everything. Public Works got a lot of stuff, so we can keep those guys that are safe out curbside doing their job. Maintain contact with the city stakeholders. When this thing initially started, we made a lot of phone calls. I think Ray and I stayed in Saturday and Sunday that weekend after, and we made a lot of phone calls, Boys and Girls Club, whoever we thought needed our help in the city, to get them what they need, because we were building this airplane as we went. And if you look on the TV, you can see, so was national, so was state, and so was the county. We're just kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and just working with what we have. And then I also look at, I spend a lot of time looking at CNN and Fox News and seeing what little information you can get from there. The president, like I said, is always, every day he's briefing something. So that led us, when we first started this thing, Chief and I had talked, I think it was about a week before the governor had declared a state of emergency. We talked about, hey, what are we gonna do as a city? And he had already made a plan for the police department. And then I kind of came up with something, because we didn't really have anything a long-term plan. We had, hey, there's a public health event. We can deal with that. It's over in a couple of days. We're out of there. But this, we didn't anticipate would go this long. And it's probably going to go a lot longer. I think we're a little bit better off now. But I think it's going to go a little bit longer. So I came up with a pandemic response plan, which is basically a tiered response to how we do business here in the city. It's mainly geared toward our employees. Hey, tier 1, we know that the virus is somewhere in the state. Tier 2, we know it's somewhere in the county. Tier 3 is here in the city. And then tier 4, we're shutting down because everybody's got it. So we kind of never made it past tier 2. We made some adjustments on the fly just because we needed to stay open as a city to make sure folks had what they need. Water, all that kind of stuff. Public Works was still open, the police department's still running. It was business as usual for us. We just closed our doors. So we weren't letting the public in. So that's kind of where we went as far as the tiers. The response plan is geared toward a pandemic response and for a public health incident. We're like I said, we're building this as we go along. So we have a really good plan if this thing happens again. And I think we'll be a lot better off. So the tiered plan is intended to provide safety and security for our employees, continue service to the public. Right now, we're still on a tier 2. I don't know that we'll ever go to a tier 3 based off of what we're seeing data-wise here in the city. Not too long ago, I think it was about a week ago, the county and the state started talking about zip codes. They started giving us information. Hey, this is how many cases are in the zip codes. If you're under 10, you are 1 to 9. So we're in the 1 to 9 category. We know of one, and that was about a month ago, and that guy is probably recovered. And let me ensure that that's confirmed. That's the only confirmed case that we know of. This thing quite possibly could have been here for a while, and we just don't know. It's just hiding as a respiratory an illness, pretty bad one for some. But those are the confirmed cases that we know about. And that's what we get from public health and Lane County. So kind of go over the timeline. I kind of did this backwards a little bit, but I kind of want to let you know what I was doing, what our response plan was about. But if you look at the timeline of response for the emergency declarations, the governor was pretty quick. She got out there March 8th, boom. A lot of people don't understand that what emergency declaration is for. It opens up the pocketbook. So that opens up a different pool of money. That's why the president was quick not long after to open up that FEMA money so we could get what we needed to get. And it worked out really quick because not long after the president declared, we were able to get our supplies. We were able to be on a better footing. Then on March 16th, Lane County decided the commissioners voted to declare. And then, of course, on March 19th, we declared here in the city. And we adopted the pandemic response plan on that date. So city responses. So on March 11th, March 8th, we get the declaration from the governor. We're like, man, we're never going to see this thing, not down here. And then March 11th, boom, it's at the Veterans Home. And we're, literally 13 miles away. This thing it's knocking on our door. So it kind of threw us off. It was kind of like everybody's got a plan to get punched in the mouth. So we got punched in the mouth and we had to figure out what we were going to do. So we spent a lot of time on March 11th. I think it was a Thursday night. And we stayed to the wee hours of the night to figure out what we were going to do for the employees, how we were going to do business in some of our facilities. And then we were able to come up with a plan. And we've kind of stuck with that plan, the tier 2 plan, since we started. March 17th, that's when they stood up ICS for the state, county, local, and then that's where we started getting a lot of communication of what's going on. Not as much as we wanted. Did we ever get a lot of communication in emergency? Not nearly as much. But we started then. So where the ball got kind of taken out of our hands is March 23rd. That's when the stay home, stay safe order came down from the governor, and we just kind of, we sat back and we complied with what she was doing. We adjusted what we were doing based on that stay home, stay safe order. And that's kind of where we sat until Friday. Now we're going into a phased response. I'm not sure everybody understands what the prerequisites are for that phase 1 opening. Just know that 33 of the counties in the state of Oregon are getting into that phase 1. The ones that are not are the ones that really have a lot of cases, and they just can't meet those prerequisites yet. We're in a pretty good spot down here in the city, just because we don't have the data that says we have a lot of cases. Even though there's a lot of them, they're kind of contained in the Veterans Home in Lebanon, and then further up in Albany. Now, that's not to say that it won't come down here, and I'm quite surprised that we haven't had a lot more cases. So we'll see how this phase 1 reopening goes. I think it started out pretty well. There's a lot more people on the road. I think everybody's cooped up, ready to get out and get going. So just kind of keep your eye on that, and keep your eye on those prerequisites, because they may come back. And I don't know that the state has figured out how to do that yet, how we are going to go back into something after we've come out. It's sort of like getting a locomotive started and going, and you're going 10, 20 miles an hour, and then you got to stop and kind of back up. So it's kind of it's not a well-oiled machine. It's kind of bulky. The next pick, that's my board. That's what I get a lot of information from Lane County. They give me all that stuff. I update that board daily. It's not on the weekends. But as you can see, there's a lot going on with those cases. We track Oregon cases, Lane County cases. We have a lot of Sweet Home cases, just the one. Deaths. We do personnel stats in the city with employees. Who's been sick? Who's had to be out sick because they have kids? Anything COVID related, we track that. We also track equipment, what we have. And we are to send that. It was 3 times a week we would send that information, just so they could get that burn rate. Hey, how many masks are you going through? How many gloves are you going through? That kind of stuff. And then they would backfill us. And then that's a little bit of the framework on the right hand for phase 1. And then finally, what are we doing next? Currently, we're working through that phase 1. I think the city's we have to work through how we're gonna open to the public. I think we're getting ready. We're really close. And then we're gonna open back up. Obviously, we'll still have social distancing, masks. We'll have all that fun stuff that we get to do that probably won't go away for a while. Once we get into the phase 1, we have to get to phase 2, there's more prerequisites, and we have to be in phase 1 for 21 days, so 3 weeks. We talked about opening the cities, and then we're just going to continue to monitor. I'm starting to do more stuff with code enforcement now. I'm not in that room as much. I don't spend as much time, so I'm able to get out on the road. We need it. I need to get out there. There's a lot of stuff to do. But that's kind of where we're at. We're going to continue to monitor the virus and the cases and just kind of see where it goes. Hopefully we're at that point where we can take the fight to the virus. We're going to start making some changes with medicines and vaccines here within the next 6 months. And hopefully we'll get this thing eradicated and we'll get back to some sense of normalcy. I don't know that it'll be the same normal that we were at, but it'll be close, I hope. And that's what I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
you're obviously out in an area we haven't been before, and everybody's trying to figure this whole thing out. You can really see it from city to city, from state to state. So it's a tremendous learning curve on everybody's part. The only question I have, because I see it, and I don't know how it ties in, but when you see one business doing a really good job, and yet you see another business that doesn't do a very good job, how do you manage that from the city standpoint?
I think it's really difficult. I think we go back to that herding cats thing.
Yeah.
The tough part about it is the enforcement piece of it. Who's going to enforce it, and what are we going to do if they're not doing it? I think the governor kind of put it in our court and said, hey, we're all adults here. Let's do the right thing. We're saving lives. The small things that we're doing, we're saving lives. I know everybody wants to get out and get back and get stuff going. And the coronavirus doesn't go outside of Safeway anyway. So, we're all safe and safely. No, I'm just kidding. But, it's one of those things where I think you just kind of correct it on the spot. I'm not going to send the chief out there to say, hey, you guys aren't doing this the right way. There are cops out there that are not police officers called OSHA. And OSHA has spent a good deal of time, and they're out there, and they'll stop and get some people if they need to. We've seen it. We've already seen it. I think the National Frozen Food place that had all the cases. So they got fined because they weren't doing the right thing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, like I said, you see it differently from city to city. Some are, the law enforcement's right there arresting people, you see that like in Hawaii and some of the places that are getting arrested. And then you look at the individuals that are actually doing it are just disregarding the whole thing. So they're just throwing caution to the wind, doing whatever they want. So
it's really tough. I think we've had some really good stores here. Like if I said something to them, they change it. If I give them advice, they'll change it right away. Safeway was a big one. Putting out the plexiglass. They did it right away. Some stores not so quick, but they're getting there. And I think it's the reality of, hey, this thing's not going away and it's serious business. And I think a lot of people in the beginning, myself included, just this is like the swine flu. It's going to go away. It's not going to come here. And then next thing you know,
and I hear that a lot. Some people say, oh, it's overblown. And I thought, well, caution to the conservative side in a bad way. And then you realize we didn't need to do that. So you can readjust on the fly, but it's a mix,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So Tommy, when you said that we have the equipment we needed when this started, did we have that in stock already?
Yeah, we had some masks, N95 masks.
Okay.
We had some, very little. Public Works had a stash. We were able to give the police department because they're out there in it. And
Okay.
Them and Public Works had everything they needed.
Okay.
So we were never short anywhere, I don't think, except for face shields, but we hadn't had to deal with anybody that we needed that. Anyone else? All right, that's all I have.
So how are things going for you? Yeah.
They are, so the clinic, as Dick mentioned, we did telemed for, probably about a month. I mean, that was the majority of the work that we did in the clinic. So we didn't really have, we canceled pretty much all of the visits unless they were, of utmost urgency. Things are starting to open back up as far as Samaritan in general is concerned. I know I seen the CEO today and he was, hinting at, getting things opened up. Our residential facility, they're moving outpatient and all of the clinical staff in this coming week. So once they get the clinical staff in there, then we should look at opening up the residential side. Hopefully within the next month or so, but I know there's caution around, having 16, kind of random people all in one place from all over the place. So things have been slow, really. Narcan distribution is slow right now. And it's unfortunate because obviously the problem hasn't gone away. And the removal of the social supports that we did have in place, the elimination of those entities, I think is just gonna create a wave that we're gonna see, you know, exponentially getting worse soon. There's been a lot more people, maybe not a lot more people, but there's definitely been an influx in hospitalizations related to substance use, alcoholism, all of that stuff, which, you know, is probably not news to anyone under the current conditions. So for me, I'm just, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that things will kind of start opening up again and we can start to get some of those supports in place and working on some of the things that we were doing, the community court, you know, things like that, that we were kind of right on the cusp of getting in place before all of this occurred. Yeah, that's pretty much it for where I'm at. Waiting for some doors to open up so we can get back to what we were doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually, I guess one last thing. The 2 peer supports that I had mentioned having out here in the area for substance use disorder, so they're starting on the 26th. So they'll be out here in the community to work with folks around substance use disorders, providing support, transportation, kind of all of that stuff. So they'll be a part of the community court kind of proceedings. And then just additionally out here as well, if we can get the mental health ban out, they'll be a part of that again, or when we do get it back out, I should say, not if, but when. And yeah, just really trying to, you know, get the infrastructure built up that we were working on.
Is that something that you'll want to advertise and get out there so people know that you're there?
I'm not sure if it's so much advertised as it is really just making sure all of the community partners know that we're there and that they can access us, you know, Jeff, and anyone else that we can collaborate with so that they know that we're a phone call away, type of thing. It is only 1 FTE that's going to be split between a male and a female, so it's 2 half-time positions, but still better than nothing, I think. And in addition to the residential facility opening up, I think having that out here will really kind of start to bridge some gaps for people who are maybe on the chronic or, you know, more systemic end of things.
Thank you. Any questions, anybody?
And if we had talked about me doing the shame and stigma presentation for you guys, a couple or maybe December or something. It's been a long time since we've been in there, since I've been in the room at least. I'd still like to do that training for you all if you're interested in it still. So it's just evidence-based practices towards eliminating shame and stigma as pertains to substance use disorders.
And is that something that you would just want here, or is it something that we could invite community members to, or do it like a webinar Zoom type thing?
We could definitely invite community members. I'm fine with doing it in person, if possible. I think it's more personable and more effective, but Teams would work as well if people are averse to. I guess it depends on how many people would want to participate.
And kind of anyone to spread people out.
Yeah.
Sign up so we know how many we're looking at.
Yeah. It's about 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, nothing too serious. I can ramble on for a long time too, though. So if we want to, stretch it out.
That's good. Make something can deal with that. So, Chief, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
I'll just echo a lot of what James said. Well, everybody has said is that everything's kind of on hold. You know, the street outreach team is still out and about. A few months ago, they did receive the old ambulance that we had, and they are actively using that within our community to do their outreach. They've been actively working, and I haven't talked to Shirley Bird, who kind of really I've been talking to the most on the pandemic response for the homeless here in town. I know Chance has been involved in some of that aspect, as well as Shirley's team with the street outreach. And so they were trying to come up with when it was stay home, stay safe. If you don't have a home, where can you stay to stay safe? And so she was working with some grant funding to try to it's kind of a hot topic, but provide some tents for those individuals for a period of time to get them through the stay home, stay safe. But so much has just come to a halt when we can't get together and do a lot of stuff. And James is right. I think there was a lot of great movement prior to this. February, first part of March, I think there was really a lot of good things going on. We know that Bob and Dick were bringing in the community court, the James Sword, and just a lot was moving. We'll just have to find a way to get back to that somehow.
So Ray, you had mentioned about possibly working on having a conversation about financial health and for some of our community members that would you like to share about that?
Yeah, so we have fortunately had a church in the community that about a month ago donated enough money to pay everybody's water bill that had not paid for the previous month. And they did that in an effort to help alleviate any COVID effects. And some of them have called and communicated with the church to thank them, which is great. But as this church is, it's Don Knight, as Don has tried to communicate with them and, you know, what else do you need and kind of find out, what are the issues? A lot of it was they didn't know how to take care of their money. And so Don engaged with several of them on, well, can we help you? And that's consistent with what I've heard with a pretty prominent employer locally as well, who will hire a kid, a 19-year-old kid, and then the kid gets a paycheck and then the kid has a new truck. And then they come in later and say, hey, can I get a draw on my check this month? Well, why? Well, I gotta make my truck payment. And then they start down the path of, so now this employer is teaching these 19, 20, 21-year-old kids how to balance a checkbook and how to set up a budget. And so I'm just hearing from a couple different sources that maybe there's some basic lack of financial understandings and financial planning. So Don has offered to help us with that. And of course, when we can open back up, we would offer the space. With the technology that we have, it could be really beneficial to help people and again, it's one, give a man a fish or teach the man to fish. And I just think it's something we can help people with. And, if you're financially stable, it improves your quality of life so much. You can afford those medications and you can afford those doctor appointments that maybe you couldn't before because you've learned to budget. You maybe even eat healthier because you've learned to budget. You're now keeping track of, wow, I eat at McDonald's a lot every month, so maybe I can do some things to eat a little bit healthier. So, so we're going to work with Don and the first thing that comes to my mind is Dave Ramsey. Can we do a Dave Ramsey course for the community, or are there other things out there? So we're going to start researching those kinds of things and see what we can do.
I think those are great ideas. I think that what we kind of need is just like a little hub for this communication of what these kind of resources are that are available right now. And because I imagine we got a lot of people in town who don't realize how easy it is to have a Zoom meeting for their organization or to communicate with people and just plug in for 45 minutes for free or be able to use somebody's account and make that happen. And so I think there's opportunities here and we don't want to miss them when we can build our community up.
Right.
So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks who come through the clinic have been educated on Zoom.
Nice.
Yeah, a big percentage of the population, at least that's seen over there has. And they had a technical assistant calling the day before, an hour before, to help them set it up. So when the doctor called, and then they would also problem solve with them. But I think it's pretty well oiled now as far as all that's going. So a lot of people know how to use Zoom that didn't at one point at least.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a good way to reach people. So anything else? Thank you. I think we're done. We're meeting adjourned.
What are we doing, Blair Larson, COVID?
Oh, I'm sorry, Blair. I am really sorry. I was even checking my little list off as we went, and I skipped right over you and went to go to the order. I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right.
Okay, that's enough.
Sorry, guys, you have to stay. Blair, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So just to update you on, I guess, how we're trying to preserve business health during this pandemic. Essentially, once this all started happening, my work quickly changed from economic development to economic preservation and doing whatever we could to help businesses in town. And so a couple different things the main thing I've been doing is basically trying to be a conduit for information and getting information out to businesses and helping them understand the federal opportunities and the state opportunities that are out there. And so that's been a big part of it, has been keeping up on all of these programs that have been developed in the last couple of months and trying to make sure that our businesses have access to them and are getting the help that they need. That's gone fairly well. We do have a few businesses that have gotten the help they need, but there are plenty that are still either are not eligible or have not been able to actually receive any funds yet. And so we're continuing to do what we can. One thing that I think this has shown, kind of as an aside, I've had to kind of develop on the fly a database of contact information, and because a lot of the work that I'm doing relies on businesses reaching out to me and making sure that I know who they are. And so any help that you all can give and that anyone listening to this can give is just to encourage people who are running businesses to please reach out to me if they haven't heard from me already, because there are a lot of resources available to help businesses. One thing that we're working on right now, actually I just put in the application this morning, the state has a matching fund that they have appropriated some funds, and Business Oregon is the organization that is in control of them. Essentially, it's a program where they have a number of requirements here, but they're trying to get grants out to small businesses. And so there's a number of things that they're targeting to make sure that this money gets to the right folks. And so they basically have said, okay, we want all the counties and the cities that are interested in doing this to apply, and we will give a dollar for dollar match. We spoke about this at the last council meeting, and the city council was in agreement, and the consensus was to devote $50,000 of economic development funds toward this application. And the way it'll work is we've applied, we've told the state how we're going to run things and what the structure is going to be like. If they approve us, they will give us a dollar for dollar match of that funding. So we'll have a total pot of $100,000. And that money will be available for grants, not loans, but flat out grants for small businesses. And the amount of the grant will depend on the size of the business. Basically, if you've got up to 5 employees, you can get $2,500, or up to $5,000 if you can show that your 60 days fixed expenses amount to that amount. In other words, if your mortgage or your other things that you still had to pay for your business add up to a higher amount than that $2,500, then you can get $5,000. And then it goes up from there. 6 to 10 employees, it's $5,000, or expenses up to $10,000, and so on. And this is particularly geared, they want us to market toward those businesses that have not been able to get much help. So sole proprietorships and historically disadvantaged business owners. Those are the targets that they're trying to reach, and so we'll be advertising to those folks And to be eligible, you have to have not been able to receive any funding yet from the federal government. And so this is really designed to kind of help those who have been left behind and fill those gaps. So we got the application in for that, and by the end of the week, we should be able to hear back on whether we will get the state match or not. I think our chances are quite good because most cities our size don't have the resources to even come up with a match. And we are very blessed to be able to have that available. Other than that, we're still moving forward with our regular work that we try to do. I just got did some work on a commercial exterior improvement program grant application, and other economic development work does go on. It's just a little bit diminished right now. I think that kind of covers our main activities. Do you have any questions?
So are you accepting applications yet for the grants or not?
That's actually something that's important to be clear about. We are not accepting grants, and I've had a number of people asking me about this already, because it's confusing when they hear application. It's our application to the state that I've been talking about and that has been reported in the news. It's not any business's application to the city. Once we are given the go-ahead from the state, then we can start receiving applications for that. But at this time, we don't have any information on whether this is actually going to move forward or not.
And would the state provide the application you're going to use, or are you going to have to develop your own?
The state has a template that they are developing, and we'll be able to modify that template for our own use.
And your nonprofits are going to be able to do this as well, that hire people?
If they are a 501c3 nonprofit, then they will be able to apply the same as a for-profit business. Yes.
Thank you. And I apologize for skipping over you.
That's all right. No worries.
Any other questions? I think it's a good program. Might make a difference. So, all right. Now with that, do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?
As the chair, you get to, that is your prerogative.
Let's just adjourn.
Okay, go back to sleep now.